Hello Internet, it's Matt here for the Dork Lords. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We talk about all manner of dorkly things here, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes. We probably have a playlist about it. Feel free to check us out. Today is another in our Dork Lord of the Rings segments. And today's topic is a special one because Dork Lords is part of a collaboration celebrating Hobbit Day, September 22nd. Many thanks to the YouTuber Memory Troll for putting this collaboration together, featuring some of the great Tolkien YouTubers, Men of the West, Nerd of the Rings, In Deep Geek, and some smaller channels, such as ourselves, were participating in this year's Hobbit Day. I'll put a link to the collaboration playlist in the video description. September 22nd is notable as Frodo and Bilbo's birthday, and also birthday of my best friend Theron, who recaps the various Tolkien films with me here on Dork Lords. So, happy Hobbit Day to all. In honor of their special day, I thought I would focus on the Hobbit's hidden strength, pity. I might use the word empathy, but as you'll see, Tolkien goes out of his way to associate the word pity with hobbits, making it perhaps their defining characteristic. Most people remember the "it was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand" scene between Gandalf and Frodo in the Fellowship of the Ring film. Peter Jackson wisely realized that that conversation encapsulates one of the central themes of the story. Much of that dialogue is taken straight from the book. One difference being that in the film, they have that talk in Moria. In the book, that scene happens back in the Shire. So, in honor of Hobbit Day, I give you that scene. We begin with Gandalf talking about Gollum. This is from the Fellowship of the Ring, Book 1, Chapter 2. The Shire. He may be seeking for it now, if he has not already found out where it lies. Indeed, Frodo, I fear that he may even think that the long unnoticed name of Baggins has become important. But this is terrible, cried Frodo. Far worse than the worst that I imagined from your hints and warnings. Gandalf, best of friends, what am I to do? For now I am really afraid. What am I to do? What a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had the chance. Pity? It was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy, not to strike without need. And he has been well rewarded, Frodo. Be sure that he took so little hurt from the evil and escaped in the end, because he began his ownership of the ring so, with pity. I'm sorry, said Frodo, but I am frightened, and I do not feel any pity for Gollum. You have not seen him, Gandalf broke in. No, and I don't want to, said Frodo. I can't understand you. Do you mean to say that you and the elves have let him live on after all those horrible deeds? Now, at any rate, he's as bad as an orc, and just an enemy. He deserves death. Deserves it. I dare say he does. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it, and he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end. And when that comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, yours not least. The word pity comes up 7 times in that passage, ending with the very prescient line, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many. So we see that Bilbo has this extraordinary capacity for pity, empathy. And Tolkien makes sure to echo that sentiment in the relevant passage from The Hobbit. This is from chapter 5. Bilbo almost stopped breathing and went stiff himself. He was desperate. He must get away, out of this horrible darkness, while he had any strength left. He must fight. He must stab the foul thing, put its eyes out, kill it. It meant to kill him. No, not a fair fight. He was invisible now. Gollum had no sword. Gollum had not actually threatened to kill him, or tried to yet. And he was miserable, alone, lost. A sudden understanding, a pity, mixed with horror, welled up in Bilbo's heart. A glimpse of endless unmarked days without light or hope of betterment. Hard stone, cold fish, sneaking and whispering. All these thoughts passed in a flash of a second. He trembled. And then quite suddenly, in another flash, as if lifted by a new strength and resolve, he leaped. No great leap for a man, but a leap in the dark. Straight over Gollum's head he jumped, 7 feet forward and 3 in the air. Indeed, had he known it, he only just missed cracking his skull on the low arch of the passage. I love how evocative that quote is. How Tolkien puts us in Bilbo's mind in real time. He's terrified and alone, and instinctively he wants to kill the threat in front of him. But even in that moment of terror, Bilbo has the capacity to place himself in Gollum's shoes. If Gollum wore shoes. He empathizes with Gollum's plight and spares him. So it seems very fortunate that someone of Bilbo's empathetic temperament found the ring. But what we learn from the unfinished tales is that Bilbo was not a random adventurer, and his capacity for pity was a cultural trait found in the Hobbits of the Shire. Gandalf observes this trait in the Hobbits and begins forming a plan. This is from Unfinished Tales, Quest for Erebor. Gandalf is speaking. And then there was the Shire folk. I began to have a warm place in my heart for them in the long winter, which none of you can remember. They were very hard put to it then, one of the worst pinches they've been in, dying of cold and starving in the dreadful dearth that followed. But that was the time to see their courage and their pity one for another. It was by their pity, as much as by their tough, uncomplaining courage, that they survived. I wanted them still to survive. But I saw that the Westlands were in for another very bad time again, sooner or later, though of quite a different sort. Pitiless war. To come through that, I thought they would need something more than they now had. It is not easy to say what. Anyway, we must begin at some point, with some one person. I dare say he was chosen, and I was only chosen to choose him. But I picked out Bilbo. Now that is just what I want to know, said Peregrine. Why did you do that? How would you select any one hobbit for such a purpose, said Gandalf. I had not time to sort them all out. But I knew the Shire very well by that time, although when I met Thorin, I'd been away for more than 20 years on less pleasant business. So naturally, thinking over the hobbits that I knew, I said to myself, I want a dash of the Took, but not too much, Master Peregrine. And I want a good foundation of the stollider sort, a Baggins, perhaps, that pointed at once to Bilbo. And I had known him once very well, almost up to his coming of age, better than he knew me. I liked him then. I remembered how he used to pester me with questions when he was a youngster about the hobbits that had occasionally gone off, as they said in the Shire. There were at least 2 of his uncles on the Took side that had done so. This is a very revealing passage. During a climactic crisis known as the Long Winter, in the year 2758 of the Third Age, about 250 years before the War of the Ring, many regions suffer terribly. This is when the Rohirrim, under Helm Hammerhand, are besieged at what will become known as Helm's Deep, starving and freezing. Helm himself freezes to death. And in the Shire, conditions aren't any better. We get another glimpse of the Long Winter's impact on the Shire in the Fellowship of the Ring prologue. Then the hobbits took the land for their own, and they chose from their own chiefs a thane to hold the authority of the king that was gone. There for 1,000 years they were little troubled by wars, and they prospered and multiplied after the dark plague, until the disaster of the Long Winter and the famine that followed it. Many thousands then perished. But the days of dearth were at the time of this tale long past, and the hobbits had again become accustomed to plenty. So thousands of hobbits died during the long winter. Gandalf sees the Shire struggle to survive during this time period, and he's taken by, as he says, their pity for one another, their empathy for their neighbors, helping each other through this dark time as a community. And Gandalf sees that it's that quality that will be needed in what he calls the pitiless war. And Gandalf knows enough about the families in the Shire that he handpicks Bilbo, knowing that he's likely to have a wealth of the empathy Gandalf is looking for. So in a sense, Gandalf is weaponizing the Hobbit's capacity for pity in the coming war against Sauron. Gandalf values this trait quite highly, and there's a revealing quote when Frodo offers Gandalf the ring. Gandalf brings up pity as the root of his own downfall. This is from the Fellowship of the Ring, Book 1, Chapter 2, and it begins with Gandalf talking to Frodo. But you have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have. But I have so little of any of these things. You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? No, cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. With that power I should have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly. His eyes flashed, and his face was lit as by a fire within. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is by pity. Pity for weakness, and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe, unused. The wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me. Gandalf is saying that the way the ring would corrupt him is through pity. He says pity for weakness, and I take that to mean that he pities those who are being abused by the powerful. It's the next sentence that separates him from the hobbits. He says that he would have the desire of strength to do good. So I think Gandalf fears that with the ring, he would seek to gain power in order to protect the downtrodden. That's how his pity would be expressed. But hobbits don't seek power. That's not how their pity manifests itself. And Gandalf is wise enough to know this. That's why he begins that conversation telling Frodo that he's been chosen. Indirectly, Gandalf chose him when he chose Bilbo for the quest to Erebor. Gandalf has seen the hobbits of the Shire demonstrate pity, and Bilbo do the same. But what about Frodo? After all, it's Frodo who says it's a shame that Bilbo didn't kill Gollum when he had the chance. Does Frodo also possess this precious trait? Pun intended. This is from The Two Towers, Book 4, Chapter 1. Well, what's to be done with it? Said Sam. Tie it up so as it can't come sneaking after us no more, I say. But that would kill us, whimpered Gollum. Cruel little hobbitses, tie us up in the cold hard lands and leave us, Gollum. Sobs welled up in his gobbling throat. No, said Frodo. If we kill him, we must kill him outright. But we can't do that, not as things are. Poor wretch. He has done us no harm. Oh, hasn't he? Said Sam, rubbing his shoulder. Anyway, he meant to, and he means to, I'll warrant. Throttle us in our sleep, that's his plan. I dare say, said Frodo. But what he means to do is another matter. He paused for a while in thought. Gollum lay still, but stopped whimpering. Sam stood glowering over him. It seemed to Frodo then that he heard quite plainly, but far off, voices out of the past. Here Frodo is remembering that conversation with Gandalf about the pity of Bilbo and how even the wise cannot see all ends. Very well, he answered aloud, lowering his sword. But still I am afraid. And yet, as you see, I will not touch the creature. For now that I see him, I do pity him. And there it is. Frodo's fear and anger towards Gollum is overcome by his pity for him. And like Gandalf, Tolkien himself places great weight on this virtue. This is from Tolkien's letters. But at this point, the salvation of the world and Frodo's own salvation is achieved by his previous pity and forgiveness of injury. At any point, any prudent person would have told Frodo that Gollum would certainly betray him and could rob him in the end. To pity him, to forbear to kill him, was a piece of folly, or a mystical belief in the ultimate value in itself of pity and generosity, even if disastrous in the world of time. He, Gollum, did rob him and injure him in the end. But by a grace, that last betrayal was at a precise juncture when the final evil deed was the most beneficial thing anyone could have done for Frodo. By a situation created by his forgiveness, he was saved himself and relieved of his burden. He was very justly accorded the highest honors. Here is Tolkien telling us that in some ways, the most important act of the trilogy is Frodo finding a way to pity Gollum. For now that I see him, I do pity him. That declaration earns him this grace that Tolkien mentions. I love that line from Tolkien's letter. The final evil deed, Gollum biting off Frodo's ring finger, was the most beneficial thing anyone could have done for Frodo. It's Frodo's change of heart from "what a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature" to "now that I see him, I do pity him." That change ultimately frees Frodo from his burden. So Gandalf's gambit, seeing the value in the Hobbit's capacity for empathy, triumphs. And there's evidence to show that Gandalf had prepared for this moment. Most people associate Gandalf with the Vala Manwë, as they should. It was Manwë who selected Gandalf, aka Alorin, to go to Middle-earth. But Gandalf served another member of the Valar as well, Nienna, known as the Lady of Pity and Mourning. This is from the Silmarillion, the Valaquenta. Wisest of the Maiar was Alorin. He too dwelt in Lorien, but his ways took him often to the house of Nienna, and of her he learned pity and patience. Though he loved the elves, he walked among them unseen, or in form as one of them, and they did not know whence came the fair visions or the promptings of wisdom that he put into their hearts. In later days, he was the friend of all the children of Ilúvatar, and took pity on their sorrows. And those who listened to him awoke from despair and put away the imaginations of darkness. Gandalf learned pity and patience from Nienna, and thousands of years later, those traits would help save Middle-earth via a very special but often underestimated group, Hobbits. Happy Hobbit Day, everyone. Check out the Hobbit Day collaboration playlist. Thanks so much,